In fiction, you'll encounter many villains, with some being completely evil like Griffith from Berserk, or having relatable motives like Tai Lung from Kung Fu Panda. But my personal favorite genre of villains are the ones that are relatable, or even the hero, depending on how you look at it. Firstly, what's an anime villain video without mentioning Mr. Freedom himself, Eren Yeager? So in the anime Attack on Titan, our protagonist Eren lives within the walls of Eldia. The walls protecting Eldia citizens from the outside world filled with man-eating titans. Unbeknownst to the people of Eldia, the Titans are actually experiments sent by the neighboring country Marley. The Titans were actually being sent as a sort of revenge for when the Eldians held the power of the 9 great Titans and enslaved the Marleyans thousands of years ago. After the Eldians lost their Titans, Marley would begin to enslave them and would inject them with spinal fluid to become mindless monster Titans, as spinal fluid was only compatible with the DNA of an Eldian. A quick side note, by now it seems like the Marleyans were the only country to be able to exact their revenge on Eldia, but in reality, the Eldians actually ruled over the world at one point, so many other countries and continents still harbor hatred for Eldia. But to bring it back to the present, Eren discovers he has the powers of the Attack Titan and soon gets the ability of the Fighting Titan as well. With this ability, Eren can control all Titans to his will, and after finding out the full extent of the ability, he unleashes something known as the Rumbling. The Rumbling being that the millions of colossal Titans hidden within the walls of Eldia would break out and would start a march to commit genocide against the entire world. So thus begins the great anime debate on whether or not Eren was right or wrong for using the Rumbling. But to gain an unbiased opinion, let's go over the cons of the Rumbling first. Firstly, the Rumbling is a move meant to wipe out all humanity except for Eldia, meaning even innocents who didn't have anything to do with the oppression of Eldia would still meet their end, which sparks the debate of the morality of whether Eren's decision as to really letting the whole world suffer for the mistakes of one country is really valid. But in my personal opinion, which is the opinion of actually many others, I believe that Eren was actually right in using the Rumbling, as prior to when Eren had decided he was going to go through with it, the country of Marley had hosted a conference for all the countries in the world to go to, presenting a play and then explaining that they needed to band together to destroy Eldia and his people, because as long as the aliens exist, the Titans exist too. And by the end of the conference, all the countries in the world had agreed it was time to get rid of Eldia, which put Eren in a situation where if he doesn't execute the Rumbling, everyone will die, and if he doesn't, his home will quite literally get knocked off the map forever. So yeah, I think bro is pretty justified in what he did. The next villain we have to talk about is Madara Uchiha from the anime Naruto. For some insight into his character, Madara is a villain who's been through a lot. Wars, the loss of his brother, betrayal, and every other sad thing you can imagine a ninja going through. After going through all this pain and suffering, Madara realized that peace will never happen through the typical means of a tree speedy or just coming together. So he devised and shortly succeeded in his plan to gather enough power to cast a genjutsu over the whole world known as the Infinite Tsukuyomi. The Infinite Tsukuyomi is a jutsu that traps the entire world in a dream where there are no conflicts, dilemmas, or anything negative in life, just pure happiness. Now in my opinion, this is pretty amazing and I'd gladly go through with it, but to really analyze this, we have to start off by going over both the pros and cons of it. Starting off with the cons, there's ethical reasons as to why the genjutsu is evil. A notable one being life is supposed to have some sort of conflict, and without conflict, people don't grow as people and learn how to persevere against their obstacles. And without the growth in the Infinite Tsukuyomi, people will stunt themselves emotionally, as conflicts is what gives life meaning. Being able to lay by your deathbed when it's your time and being able to recall what you've been through is quite an achievement and testament to strength. Another con of this genjutsu is the overall irony of it, as even though its whole point is to bring peace, forcibly imprisoning people into a fantasy isn't peace, but rather another act of human wrath or conflict, which raises the question of how can there be world peace when the only way to obtain is but through more fighting and conflict. On the latter, the Infinite Tsukuyomi is the best thing for the world, as constant peace and stability is what many people need in our life, and even in the real world too. As for me personally, life can reach an all-time low and you really begin to envision and reminisce about times where everything was just serene and tranquil. Another pro of the Infinite Tsukuyomi is how it blocks the cycle of mankind's hate, as the reason peace treaties or efforts for peace don't work is because we always revert to our hateful tendencies, which leads to fights, wars, and a lot of more. But in the genjutsu, none of that exists. One last pro of Madara's Infinite Tsukuyomi is that there's no death, and because of that you can still interact with any loved ones that may have died in real life. And for those who are watching this video and have had a loved one die on them and knows the feeling of being ready to do anything to speak with them one more time, yeah, you know how it hits. So overall, I believe Madara is right and the show could have really ended right there, but instead we got, a whole lot of other stuff in Boruto of all things. Lastly, we got a villain from the semi-underrated show Psycho-Pass, our guy Shogo Makishima. For context, in the world of Psycho-Pass, the Sibyl system is an AI that uses multiple algorithms to examine a person's mental state and their likeliness to commit a crime based off emotion. Those whose numbers reach or go over a certain number are deemed as lane criminals and are sent to a rehabilitation until their number goes down and they can re-enter society. But Shogo Makishima is an anomaly in this society, with him having the ability to commit crimes without his number flaring up in the Sibyl system, which essentially makes him public enemy number 1. Shogo's sole purpose in this show is to get rid of the Sibyl system so humans can have free will, and to be honest, Shogo's completely right in this instance, so I'm not even gonna bother going over pros and cons, but instead, how fucked up the Sibyl system is, and why Shogo's intervention was actually needed in the show. Firstly, as stated before, humans have no free will in a society where the Sibyl system reigns supreme, as people are constantly being monitored at all times, and a camera being able to detect one's stress, intentions, and emotions. Meaning, let's say hypothetically you had a hectic day, or you have a lot of work to do from school, and your stress levels rise. Despite your stress levels being a normal reaction, the Sibyl system would detect that and run with it as you having the tendency to possibly crash out. And this is an ethical issue, as most of us have had either violent, stressful, or sad thoughts, and even though we were doing these things and contemplating them in our head, we never acted on our impulses and continued on with our day. Shogo Makishima believes that having such feelings are just a part of being human, and us limiting those emotions are stunning our growth heavily. Another ethical issue of the Sibyl system is the fact that it's a system, as because of it being something technological instead of humanoid, what authority or right does it have to tell others that they need to be put away because it suspects that person might crash out? In this show, we find out that the system is actually flawed, as it's compiled of brains of people who, similar to Shogo Makishima, could control their emotions in such a way that any crime or negative intention they exhibited will go unnoticed. Lastly, Shogo Makishima views the Sibyl system as a weapon of oppression, which has conformed humans into paths that it views best for others even though it might not be their desire, with the Sibyl system assigning citizens jobs or roles based off their emotions as well. Its attempt to try to harmonize society into these roles leads to more lane criminals sent to rehab as they eventually realize they're not meant for what the system tells them to do. So in conclusion, I'd say Shogo Makishima isn't really a villain, but rather a catalyst or symbol of the individuality of a person. Next up, we got our honorable mentions. Firstly, we got the hero killer Stain from My Hero Academia. So Stain's ideology was that heroes who desire to be heroes for the wrong thing, whether it's money or fame, shouldn't be heroes, as they don't really portray the meaning of heroism. And in his eyes, heroism shouldn't be a profession, but rather someone with power just doing what is right. And this mindset leads to him killing down a lot of notable heroes in MHA. Now, to be honest, I believe Stain has the right ideology, but the wrong actions to take on it, as I'm sure his takes for sure would have gotten popular through simple online marketing, as killing heroes led to him becoming the villain that those same fake heroes he criticized now have to fight against. Another honorable mention we gotta talk about is Scar from Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, who I fully believe has one of the most underrated / underappreciated character growths in all of anime. So what we find out about Scar is that he's one of the few survivors left from the genocide of his people, and he's an infamous serial killer to State Alchemist as revenge for that. And to be honest, I'll be on the same shit against the country that left me with no immediate or extended family left on the planet. But his growth in the understanding that he doesn't have to view or use alchemy as a way to destroy and continue this cycle of bloodshed is one of my favorite character developments of all time. Plus, my nigga Scar always put that shit on the show, and I'ma always support my black people in the show no matter what, even if they are kinda ass. Now for our last honorable mention, we got another Naruto character, Pain. Now if you remember how I said Madara wanted to bring peace to everyone by putting them in a serene dream, well Pain was the complete opposite, as he wanted everyone to be unified in suffering. So his plan was to decimate the entire world so everyone could unify in the fact that pain and loss was just something everyone had to deal with. And in Pain's case, I understand why he believes that. As a child of war, and he watched his parents die due to the war and watched one of his only 2 friends on the planet die as well, I'd say that, like, you know, becoming kind of crazy is just bound to happen at one point. Also, he had just like Stain, he had the right thought process but just the wrong actions. So anyway, y'all, bruh, I appreciate y'all so much. We keep getting more and more subscribers. I think this video might be the one that helps me get monetized, because that's been my goal, as I've been saying for the past videos for this year for real. Anyway, y'all, continue to like and subscribe, share the video maybe, and bro, I appreciate y'all for real, like on some real shit, man. Y'all will never know.